Alright, I think we're on a bad movie streak. Bad movie aficionado. Wishmaster Part 3 was released in 2001. This is the 4-pack, as I have said in the previous reviews. I have reviewed the first and second film already, if this is the first film you're catching, so I'll probably put a link in the description for films 1 and 2 if you want to go check those out. But just finished watching the third part. All these films I'm watching for the first time. This is a really cool Vestron release, which has all 4 on Blu-ray. I like that. And yeah, first time watching all the films. So I've seen them in the video stores back in the day, but I never rented them or like they've never come to my attention since until very recently. But this one, um, it's got a lot of things going that are not positive for it. The biggest one being that Andrew Divoff is not playing the Djinn in this one. That's a big detriment to the film. I didn't know that. I thought he was in all of them, or at least up to 3 at least. But because he did such a iconic job as the Djinn and really fit that Djinn role in the first 2 films, not having them here is is a little bit disappointing to say the least. We do have there is. I'm gonna get to one thing that they did at least did good without having Andrew Divoff, because recasting him is just really hard to do. But they did something that is kind of redeemable. They did the best they could with a certain thing that I'll get into during the review. Regardless, though, this film follows this woman or young woman named Diana, and Diana is a college student. I believe she is majoring in science or something like that. Definitely minoring or majoring in legends. What do you call it? Folklore. There's a name for it. uh, you know, I'm just going to use the term folklore for now. But anyways, that's what she's studying. At the beginning of the film, you're shown that she lost her parents in a tragic car accident when she was a child, and she's having a flashback of that. Flashback, when they change the voices out of everybody during the flashback, and it's really silly sounding, and it really definitely takes you out of the film big time. But she lost her parents in this crash. The father was trying to save the mother. She was already out of the car, and then the car blows up, and she loses both her parents. But this girl in present day has a boyfriend, and his name is Greg. And during one of her lectures, basically she has plans to meet her professor at a museum, because she's a very dedicated student. She's very passionate to her studies, and she's very dedicated to her studies. So she plans to meet her professor at the museum, where he's doing all kinds of research and studying artifacts, one of them being this star-shaped kind of pendant pewter-made thing that he's trying to basically, study and see what it means, kind of thing. She meets him. First of all, her boyfriend Greg is extremely jealous of the situation, because he thinks that the professor wants her, basically, and she thinks that she has a crush on her professor, being he's older and smarter and has a British accent. Actually played by Jason Connery, which is Sean Connery's son. So that's pretty interesting to see one of Sean Connery's children, the legendary Sean Connery, play in this film. So I didn't even know it was him until I looked it up, but I didn't know who Sean Connery's kids were, kind of thing. But anyways, the professor is played by Jason Connery, and they meet at the museum, and basically she gets there first, and she starts to look at this object, and she realizes that it has a little trinket, kind of like a button on it. So she takes a little, like, pointy, looks like a pen thing, and clicks it, and then it opens up, and she finds the opal, the red opal that's famous for being in these films. The professor comes along, and he's astounded that she discovered this, like, real quick, and he's observing the thing. This thing, it's funny, because he's like, this is absolutely remarkable. And the thing looks like it was bought from a dollar store. Like, it looks like the cheapest fucking toy opal red ruby thing that you could possibly imagine. And he's looking at it like it's worth, like, fucking $500,000 or some shit. But yeah, he's so happy and he's so proud that she discovered this thing that he invites her. He's like, "Have you had dinner yet?" And he's basically inviting her for dinner at his house. He's like, "We'll pop open a vintage Chardonnay and we'll do our translations during dinner." And she's like, "Oh no, I don't think my boyfriend would understand." And this guy's like so excited, like he's like a pig in shit. He's so so thirsty for, not thirsty, but like flirty with this girl. Like he's forward as fuck. You can totally tell his intentions. He's forward as fuck. And she's like, "Yeah, I don't think my boyfriend will understand." He's basically like, um, "I don't appreciate your insinuation." And he gets all pissed, and she's like, "I didn't mean it like that," and whatever. Well, clearly he did. It's very obvious. But then the djinn comes out of nowhere, and the djinn is played by a different actor, obviously, like I said. He's played by this guy named John Novak. Now, the djinn in monster form, and this is what I wanted to discuss, like, the makeup is applied the same way it was in the second one, so he still has the same. He just has a different voice, and it's amplified too. Like, clearly there's a voice box going on or some kind of voice changer done in post-production that sounds different than the djinn did. It sounds way different and even looks different than Andrew Divoff. But you can really put the djinn makeup and costume on anybody. He's just going to look slightly different, but the djinn character design looks the same. It's kind of like the whole Hellraiser situation, which we won't talk about who played Pinhead in the ninth film. Didn't look good at all. And again, I'm not dissing the actor because the actor did the best he could, but it just did not look like Pinhead. And anybody, any horror fan, anybody who's seen Hellraiser knows exactly what I'm talking about. The actor in the 10th film looked great, and he was more of a Pinhead-looking guy, but you are always going to run into problems no matter what, replacing an iconic character like Pinhead, like, I'm blanking on his name, of course. The guy who played Pinhead, Doug Bradley, I think. Yes, Doug Bradley. You can't, like, you're always gonna struggle replacing an actor like that to the point where you might as well not even bother. Now, what they did good in this film is they replaced the djinn playing the genie in monster form, which is fine. Again, you're putting the same makeup, you're dressing the guy up the same. It's a different guy. He's gonna look slightly different, but they didn't replace the actor in human form, which is good. What happens is the djinn, there's a scene where the professor dies and then the djinn takes the professor's face. It's really quick too. He literally just cuts it off with his nail. Like, literally just does a circle on his face, grabs the thing and puts it on himself, and then he like transforms into the professor. And the professor becomes your djinn throughout the whole film. So instead of the djinn kind of turning into Nathaniel Demiris or whatever his name was in the first two films, and replacing Andrew Divoff with a different human actor, which would be really, really stupid, they just made the djinn go into the professor's body and play out as the djinn in the professor's body throughout the rest of the film. Which is a smart idea if you're going to replace the actor. Like, at least they did it in in a way where the audience would not be looking at the djinn and just keep thinking of Andrew Divoff. At least it was already a human character in the film, and it played out with the story and with the plot. So at least they did that. At least they only replaced the actor when he's playing the djinn, which wasn't too bad. It could have been worse, like I said. But the djinn grants, before he kills the professor, he grants the professor one wish, of course, because he needs souls. And he doesn't need 1,001 in this film, so they changed the lore. Again, the continuity doesn't exist in these films, clearly. And the professor's wish is basically he wants two of the most beautiful women that he's ever seen in his life with him right there and then. You think it's going to be Diana, because he was thirsty for Diana like crazy, but it's not. It's just these two random beautiful women that come out in lingerie, and then they take their bra off and you see their tits, and then they start macking the professor, and he's all like in heaven. And then they basically start biting the professor and like sucking his tongue out of his face and just like destroying him and killing him, obviously. And then this is where the Jinn takes his face and then becomes the professor, depressor, fuck, the professor, and then he, is in disguise. So he goes to the school. How the Jinn knows where the professor's classroom is, I don't know, because the Jinn does not know other details, such as he starts to lecture the class on jinns, but they're not supposed to be learning about jinns until next semester, which one of the classroom girls mentions. Also, he wants to return, I think, a paper back to Diana, and he's like, "Is Diana here?" And then one of the girls, the same girl, is like, "Don't you know Diana is always late for class?" And he's like, "Oh, I guess I forgot," or something like that. So he doesn't know specific details about the classroom because it's not the professor, it's the Jinn, which makes me wonder. I'm like, then how did he know where the classroom was? A little bit of a plot hole there, movie. A little bit of a plot hole, but you can, it's not super detrimental or anything. Diana really starts to put things together real fast. I understand that she has visions, just like the other girls in the other films had visions of whenever the genie would kill somebody or whenever the genie like would do something. She would have these crazy visions in her head. So, but still, she's able to put like the Pandora's box element together. She's able to realize that she was the waker of the genie. She's able to just guess that the professor is not actually the professor, but he's being possessed by this genie thing. And she just comes to these conclusions really, really quick. A little too quick, I think, to seem realistic. But it is what it is. I like this scene. One thing this film does really different, too, and in a good way, is when people wish, they actually say, "I wish." And there's this receptionist that works at the university who wishes that all the files can go up in flames so she can just get the hell out of there. And it happens, and they do, and then she gets lit on fire and, ends up being burned to death. But it's cool that the people who wish actually say "I wish" at least, which differs from the last films, obviously. Greg obviously has huge doubts, and so do the rest of her friends, one of them being named Katie, and Katie has a boyfriend named no, not Jason. What's her boyfriend's name? Billy. Billy and Katie are Diana's friends, and they all want to get her help, and especially Greg keeps mentioning that she needs help, she needs to see therapy, he doesn't understand why she doesn't, and she's getting mad at him all the time because he doesn't take her seriously, and she's really convinced about everything that's going on. The best scene in Wishmaster 3, hands down, which actually brought this film from 1.5 out of 5 to 2 out of 5 for me, is the church scene. There's this scene where Greg and Diana go to this church for they're seeking help, which I assume from a priest, right? And lo and behold, the Jinn is there in the professor's body. And he mentions this thing about why God isn't there to help. And he's like, that's the downside to free will. And it makes sense because the downside to free will, I guess, is, God not helping you when you fuck up and make bad decisions, right? So he's like, yeah, the downside to free will, God not being there to help. And I just like the way he put it. He put it in this way where it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I guess with free will, you can make your own choices and consequences do happen, right? God's not going to help you with bad choices. But there's a scene where he introduces this girl named Anne, which is another student, who made a wish, and has the hots for this professor, and her wish was to lose a little bit of weight. Well, the genie gives her an instant liposuction, pretty much, and she starts vomiting all of her insides, especially her entire stomach. This totally reminded me of the film City of the Living Dead by Lucio Fulci, where the young woman is in the car with her boyfriend at some theater or some parking lot or something like that, and she literally just starts spewing her guts. It's one of the most disgusting and legendary horror scenes there is. She just starts slowly regurgitating bloody inside. It's disgusting, and this is what happens here, and it's decent practical effects. She starts vomiting disgustingly, and they really make it. They really go for the gross out, and because of that, I definitely give props and kudos to that scene specifically and everything that happened in that church, including Diana's second wish, which she wishes for invoking the spirit of the angel Michael to help her defeat the genie. And even the genie's like, clever girl. And then Greg gets possessed by this angel Michael, and he wields this like awesome looking medieval sword, and he becomes like the hero. Now there is something stupid that happens there, because originally she wished for the angel to like help her take over, and then the angel starts to take her over, and then Greg, for absolutely no reason, comes by and pushes her aside and takes the possession himself, like being the hero. Which I guess makes a little bit of sense, but it's like you didn't even give her a choice. You're just like, move, bitch, and I'm taking this, and then he gets the sword and everything. And they're trying to defeat, the djinn in the professor's body throughout the rest of the film. There's Billy's death scene. It doesn't make too much sense, because the genie is able to remove people's pain if somebody wishes for that to happen. You're like, take the pain away, and the genie will do it like that. But the genie doesn't do it for Billy, and his excuse is because Diana is the waker of the genie. It's Diana's responsibility to wish his pain away. So Billy is saying, take away the pain, and the genie won't do it because Diana has to wish that, or make that wish. But they don't, again, that doesn't happen in the last films. In the last films, when the victims say, take the pain away, the genie will do it. It's not the waker's responsibility in the last film, so why is it the waker's responsibility in this films? Plot holes, movie, plot holes. There's this girl who falls in love with the professor again, the djinn in the professor's body, and she's like, you look like somebody who can break hearts, and he's like, do you want me to break your heart? And she's like, absolutely, I do. And then her heart explodes. Oh man, I love the wishes in this film. Like, the wishes are the funniest part in this in this series of films. Just where they go and shit like that. Katie's death, she accidentally makes a wish. The professor, or the genie in the professor's body, or the djinn in the professor's body, is hunting down Katie and trying to find her, and she's underneath this desk, and she's making this phone call, which she's trying to be quiet, but clearly she's not quiet, and wherever the genie's in the same room, and obviously the way she's speaking, the genie can fucking hear her. She's speaking so loudly and trying to be quiet, and then she accidentally makes a wish. She's like, oh, I really wish there was someplace I could hide. And then the genie appears, and she's like, as you wish. So he puts her head in a mouse cage. She wishes that there could be somewhere where she could hide, and then he stuffs her head, only her head, in a mouse cage, and the rats start biting at her eyes and mouth. That makes no sense. She wishes for some place to hide. He could shrink her and put her in the cage, but even if he did that, it's a cage. You can see through the cage. She's not hiding in a cage. He didn't turn her into a mouse. He didn't turn her. He didn't put her in somewhere where nobody could see. He didn't put her in a box. He put her in a cage that you can see through, her head only, to be eaten alive by mice. That's not her wish. That wish made no sense. She wished for something, and you gave her something totally opposite. That is stupid writing. That is dumb writing. That is dumb. That is not writing that is excusable. That's why I'm ranting. That wish did not happen the way she asked for it, not even remotely. And that's just the genie taking advantage of his power, and just destroys the entire lore of the genie, because the genie has to stick to his own rules, because that's what genies do. But that's how Katie dies. She gets her face eaten, and the practical effects look cheap, but still cool. You can see her eyes like all bitten up, and her mouth and shit like that. But anyways, after that, there's a whole cat and mouse thing. The Greg, as like possessed by the angel Michael, is chasing down the genie. There's a scene where the genie gets I keep saying genie even though it's djinn. I apologize. It's the djinn. The traditional word is the djinn. But the djinn gets his arm cut off and then replenishes it. So apparently the djinn's limbs can replenish themselves. And then we have the climax, which is again very convenient and very not fitting the lore of the second films. So another thing that happens that goes against everything. She says that if she kills herself, that the genie will fail. So if she kills herself before making the third wish, that the genie will fail. So she goes off and tries to jump off a roof. First of all, can't even talk. First of all, it was established in the second film that the person can't die until the wishes are fulfilled, because the character in the second film tries to kill herself and fails. I think she shoots herself in the head or something, and she can't die. And it's made aware that she can't die. It's made clear that she can't die until she makes the wish. But in this one, apparently she can. Because the genie runs over and grabs her arm, and he's hanging there, and then she gets the sword tossed at her, and then she stabs the genie, and then they fall together, and they fall like from the roof of a building right to the ground, and she's using his body to like break her fall, and she lands on the ground, and it doesn't work that way. She's gonna die just the same as the fucking guy is. And she just rolls over. She's fine. He has a sword sticking out of him, so how she used his body to save herself with a sword, like literally in the middle of his body, also convenience, doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I'm kind of rushing because I'm running out of memory on my phone. But she lives, and then they kiss, her and Greg, and they tell each other they love them because apparently that word hasn't been dropped in their relationship yet. So she's like, I love you, and he's like, I love you too, and then it's roll credits. And the director of this film is Chris Angel. I had to look that up. It's not the magician Chris Angel, because as soon as I read that, I'm like, Chris Angel directed this? It actually sounds pretty cool. I could see him like having his own vision. I don't know like whether he's a good director or not, or would be, because he hasn't directed anything like the magician Chris Angel. It would still be cool to see his vision in a film that he would direct. But no, it's a different Chris Angel completely. A director Chris Angel, but they just have the same name. So yeah, I love you too, roll credits. The movie was dumb. The ending was dumb. It had some cool practical effects sometimes, but that was it. And Jason Connery wasn't horrible. I mean, like I said, whoever wrote this film wrote the replacement of Andrew Divoff as best as they could. Not perfect, because that's impossible to do. When you have an iconic actor playing an iconic character, you can't replace them. It's practically impossible. But they did the best they could, and they fit it into the story the best they could. So I can definitely respect that. This film gets 2 out of 5 because of the church scene alone, and because of that chick regurgitating all her insides. Otherwise, it would have gotten 1.5 out of 5. But it's a film that you can still have fun with, but it is a bad movie. Hands down, definitely. I don't know how I'm feeling about the 4th film, but we shall see, and that review is coming soon. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. Watch the other reviews for 1 and 2 if you haven't yet, and the 4th one is coming. I'll be back with more reviews. Stay tuned if you're interested. Subscribe if you're interested, and until next review, take care. Have a good one, and cheers.